Hiya, this is the first video I'm making. Hopefully it won't be the last. We'll see how this one goes. But the reason why I'm making this video is I really feel that we need to talk about how masculinity is sort of perceived and punished in the world we live in, especially the Western world. You know, and this goes back to from the minute you leave your home and you go to school. You know, if you look at the educational system, everything is sort of highlighted in a way in which you can't be too boisterous. You can't, the way you're taught to learn things isn't through physically doing stuff, which is how most boys learn, but instead you're taught to just write stuff down and try and memorize it, which is why boys are doing so terrible in school. And then you take it further than that and you look at as you grow up and you go to university or you get a job, and how it's this, men are encouraged to talk about their feelings, they talk about their emotions, and it's made me sort of sit and think, oh my god, they are trying to destroy the idea of men being men and women being women, and so I thought I need to talk to someone about, and I don't know if maybe, I'm the only one that feels this way. I don't think so. I think that there's a lot of men out there that feel that they don't have a spokesman or a voice, and they feel that if they are true to themselves and they act in the way in which biology has made them to be, which is men and being boisterous, being masculine, and they feel that they'll be punished if they're like that. And so I feel like something needs to be talked about to actually say no, that this isn't right. Women are women and they have female traits, and men are men and we have masculine traits. But for some reason, like I said, there's this real sort of agenda to stop masculinity. This idea that you're encouraged to take antidepressants before you're encouraged to go to the gym and get in shape is crazy to me. If you want to talk about mental health, and there's a big problem with mental health in men, and that's talked about enough, fair enough, but the prescription is completely wrong. We're encouraged, we're told that the way you deal with mental health for men is to take antidepressants and go and see a therapist, and I think that's utterly ridiculous. It's for thousands of years men have been men, and we haven't had these men. Even go back to when we're getting shot at by Germans and bombs going over our head. Men are more miserable now in what would be you'd think the easiest time to live in than they were 100 years ago when they were being put in trenches and going to war. So there's a reason for that, and it isn't because life's worse now, because it isn't. Like I said, 100 years ago they were in trenches getting shot at. We don't have any of that now. Most men live relatively comfortably. You've got 20-year-olds driving BMWs, and it's not like we live in tough times per se, but men are miserable. And the reason why most men are miserable is because, well, we're not encouraged to be men. So it's like we're constantly having to put on a role, put on a character of, oh, we've got to talk about our feelings, we can't say that, we can't do this, Like I said, we're prescribed drugs and therapy before being prescribed things like actually, I don't know, getting a job, working hard, going to the gym, physical things that actually have cured a lot of men's problems for generations. What I think people don't realise when it comes to mental health is, especially if I can speak from the male side of it, is men need a purpose. I think that what causes a lot of mental health issues in men is they're completely lost. They either don't work, or they work at a job that they absolutely hate, doing, stood behind a till, doing the most tedious, meaningless tasks. You could disappear tomorrow and you wouldn't be missed in terms of, at work. You know, and I think that causes mental health problems. I think that men are overweight, a lot of them. They're unhealthy, and then that causes mental health problems. You know, but like I said, it's very easy to point out a problem. The difficulty is finding the solution. I get that, and the reason why I'm talking to you is because I think that the solution that's pushed on people, like I said, is go to therapy, talk about your feelings, say how upset you are, talk about how miserable you are. If that doesn't work, take some drugs and antidepressants, see if that helps you. And I'm like, no. You know, I'm not the spokesman for men or anything like that, but I can stand here from experience and say that I was at my least happiest point in my life when I dropped out of uni and I was unemployed, and I spent most of my days deciding what kind of, you know, milk am I going to put in my cup of my tea. Like, that was how strenuous my life was, like, you know. And people sit there and go, oh, you must have had love. Like, you know, you weren't working, so you could get up when you want. Your life is your oyster. You know, you could do what you want. You've got all your free time. But actually, no, my life was miserable. I hated it. I didn't realise at the time. I didn't know that was the cause of it. I just knew I was miserable. And then things happen. You know, I got my shit together basically, and now, you know, I work full time. I barely have a day off, but I'm at the happiest I've ever been. And I'm not saying necessarily, you know, every man, you know, you need to do X, Y, Z. There's no formula like, you know, do this and you'll be happy. But the point I'm trying to make is, most men are unhappy because their life hasn't got any purpose, and men need a purpose. We need something to get us up in the morning, and that is what I would be encouraging before I talk about any antidepressants or talk about my feelings. You know, if you're a guy out there and you are miserable and you think that, you know, your life is pointless, what I would say to you is go to the gym, get in shape, keep yourself well groomed, you know, get a nice haircut, make sure, you know, you're looking fresh. Obviously get a job and work your way up through that, and actually have a purpose in life, you know. And to me, that is far better of a prescription or a cure than taking antidepressants and talking about your feelings. I don't think that gets you anywhere. I think that the way I would describe it, right, because like I said, masculinity is punished in this world. You're not allowed to be masculine anymore. And there's a reason for that. It's because they don't want, and when I say they, I mean the government, society, you know, the matrix, if you will. They don't want free thinking, strong, working, middle-aged men. They don't want that. They want a society that is dependent, right? That's why they encourage men to be weasels and weak and, you know, just go on benefits, or, you know, because they don't want free thinking, independent young men. And so everything's done purposefully. You know, it's not a coincidence. This idea that they genuinely think that will help men is complete rubbish. But we fall for it. We feed into it because it's easy. You know, if I said to you, oh, what would you rather, go for a 5k run or lay in bed and watch Netflix? Of course you're going to pick lay in bed and watch Netflix if you do what's easy for you. But what people, there's a really good quote, and it's, don't do what makes you happy. Do what is you are meant to do. Do what your role is in society. So if you've got a wife, you've got kids, or if you've got a family, you know, or even if you're on your own, right? You have got certain roles, right? As a man, whether you like it or not, if you want to live your life to the best possibility, you have got certain roles. Now you can choose to ignore those roles, But like I said, then you will end up miserable, depressed, sad, etc. Or you can sit there and go, look, I don't want to do them. I'd much rather sit in bed right now and watch Netflix. But actually, if I don't do these roles, my family won't eat, they won't be happy, you know, that'll cause marriage problems down the line, relationship problems, you'll become overweight, you'll become unmotivated, and your life will perpetually go down, right? So sometimes doing what you're meant to do rather than what you want to do, in the long run, leads to a life of doing things you want to do instead of what you need to do, right? I don't want you to be sat here in 40 years time still working 9 to 5, you know, 9-hour shifts at some job that couldn't give a toss about you, in a relationship where your wife just sort of has to put up with you, you know, but you're not getting anything out of the relationship that you want. You've got ungrateful, spoiled kids, you know, and your life has gone past you like that. I don't want you to be sat there like that, you know. And the time to act is now. And it's, you know, I'm not sat here saying like I'm some perfect individual, you know, and, you know, do what I do because I'm, of course I'm not. You know, I've got so much that I need to work on, and luckily I'm only 22 years old, and hopefully, you know, I've got enough time to get my shit together. But it's very difficult when the media and the education, they don't push you to be like that. They push you to choose the easy route. So I'm sort of stood here as, you know, it could be a very small voice, but still a voice telling you, actually, there is more to life than accepting the little crumbs that they feed you. But it comes at a price of, you know, like I said, putting down the remote, getting up, getting a job, working out, making sure you keep yourself looking nice, and life will change for you. It really will. Life will 100% change for you. It certainly has for me. I've gone from a kid that incredibly skinny, lazy, you know, no confidence, no social skills. Like I said, I dropped out of uni and my life had no direction. I was literally, there were times where I sat there and was like, you know, I could die tomorrow and I couldn't give a toss. I'm going to die soon anyway, you know, I'll die one day anyway, so what's the point? And like I said, it wasn't like switched in me or anything like that. It was more, I realised that life isn't just going to hand something out to you, you know. I think as a kid you sort of have this idea that you just keep doing what you're doing, something will happen, something will come up, and, you know, your life will just fall into place. And I think at some point I just realised, actually, I'm 22 now, I was 19 only a couple of weeks ago, it feels like. I'm gonna blink in 1 minute and next minute I'm gonna be 25, then I'm gonna be 30. At what point do you sit there and take action on your life? And look, like I said, there's no formula, there's no do this, this and this and you will have the perfect life, right? I think that's why a lot of people don't do it. But actually, when you break it down, if you just do the right thing, you eat well, sleep well, exercise well, you're not going out drinking and partying every night, you know, you work hard, you do those things, the chances are you will have a nice life, you know? It's not one of those things where, you know, the way I would explain to you is this, right? If I said to you, if you get up at 8 in the morning every day, right? You go to work, you come home, you go to gym for 40 minutes, you work out, you come back, you have a nice home cooked meal, and you do that on repeat consistently, you will be in good shape, you will feel motivated, you will be healthy. In return, that's going to lead to things like you're going to be more attractive, you're going to be more appealing, mentally you're going to feel a lot healthier. So actually, although I say there's no set formula, you do this and this and you will become perfect, if you follow those basic rules, then your life will get better, you know. And I certainly would suggest doing all of that before you even contemplate going to therapy and sat in some boring old office saying, oh yes, I feel sad today. I feel sad today. Oh, please tell me more. Tell me how sad you are. Is it because your life is shit? Is it? You know, what's that gonna do? Yes, my life is shit. Oh, okay, really? Tell me more. What? Who's... Anyway, I'll be here for 40 minutes if I get into all that. So, but yeah, I thought I'd just have a chat to you about it and let me know what you think. Maybe you think I'm talking absolute nonsense. Maybe you think actually this goofy little twat's onto something. I don't know. But yeah, I'm glad I had this chat and hope I'll see you in another one. Thank you.